lot going on right here. So just
Okay. All right, good afternoon, everyone. If we will please stand, and we will receive Deacon Kevin Tulapana for our invocation. Deacon.
Thank you. Almighty and gracious God, we give you thanks for many blessings that you have bestowed upon our community. We ask your blessing upon all who are gathered here tonight in service to the people of Atchison. Grant us wisdom and discernment, that in all our deliberations we may seek not simply what is expedient or what we desire, but what is good, what is just, and what best serves the common good. Give us humility to listen sincerely to one another, especially when we disagree. Grant us patience in our deliberations, courage in our decisions, and charity in our words and actions. Bless our commissioners, our city leaders, our first responders, our employees, and all those who work each day in the service to this community. May the decisions made here tonight respect the dignity of each and every one of these people, care especially for those most in need, and help Atchison remain a place where families, businesses, and all our citizens may. Remind us that service is a privilege and a sacred trust. Guard us from pride and self-interest, and help each of us to place the good of our neighbors and our community before ourselves. In all that we do, make us instruments of your peace, justice, mercy, and love. We ask this through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Wonderful. Thank you, Deacon. All right, Tina, if you could please call the roll. Oh, I do need to call the meeting to order. Goodness, that is why I have coffee right here. All right, I will officially call the meeting to order. Okay, yes, thank you. Thank you, Tina. Now,
Mary Young,
present.
Vice Mayor Wilcox.
present.
Commissioner Greenlee.
Present.
Commissioner Murphy.
Present.
Commissioner Slattery.
Present.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. At this time, we will open for our public forum. Persons who wish to address the City Commission regarding items that are not on the agenda may do so at this time when called upon by the mayor. Again, items that are not on the agenda. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes and should give their name and address when addressing the commission. Any presentation is for information purposes only, and any and all written communication should be deposited with the city clerk. At this time, we will open the meeting. Open the public forum. All right, anyone here? All right, we will close the public forum. All right, at this time, we will welcome our city manager, Mr. Mark Westhoff, with our consent agenda.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. We have 8 items on the consent agenda tonight. The first is to approve the meeting minutes for your July 13th, 2026 special City Commission meeting. The second is to approve the minutes of your July 20th, 2026 City Commission meeting. Third, to approve the minutes of the August 3rd, 2026 City Commission meeting. Fourth is to approve the occupational license for VFW 1175. Fifth, to approve the occupational license for Atchison Elks number 647. Sixth, to authorize the submission of the 2026 federal fund exchange request to KDOT. It's a program the city participates in where we receive some federal dollars to go towards transportation projects, and then we submit those back to KDOT. This year, the federal fund exchange will be going towards our match of some of the sidewalk projects that are coming up in late 26, early 27. Seventh is to adopt Resolution 3457, supporting submission of application to the KHITC program. We received notice from our ARC Contracting. They're submitting an application for Kansas Housing Investor Tax Credits, and they asked for support. Basically, they've built at least 12 homes in Atchison since 2019. They're looking to build another 12 and increase the speed at which they build them. Obviously, we are happy with the work that ARC has done in the community, ARC, and so there's no obligation to the city. We simply put in that we support this contractor, and they are doing what they say they're doing in the application. The 8th is to approve the transfer of $917.69 from the ARPA fund to the ERP to offset our dump truck purchase from earlier this year. We discussed this at the time. We needed to purchase a new dump truck because of one that was crashed last year. And so it was an unbudgeted expense, and we wanted to try to offset that with the remainder, whatever was left of the ARPA funds that we received from the federal government in 2021. Those funds must be spent by the end of this year, so we thought this was a good fit to, we've done a lot of projects with it. We don't know what the remainder would be at the time. You all gave direction to go ahead and use those funds to offset the truck. The dump truck purchase was around $113,000. The ARPA funds remaining after we completed all the projects was $107,917.69. So this will close out all of the ARPA funds that we have received, make sure that we don't have to return any to Treasury, and will reduce the cost of that dump truck down to about $6,000.
I move we accept the consent agenda as read.
All right, it's been moved. Is there a second?
Second it.
All right, it's been moved and seconded that we accept the consent agenda as read. All those in
I
favor?
got questions.
Yes, we do have questions.
Mike Sinner again.
Yes.
Two questions on the AHITC. Did they initiate that request, or did the city initiate that?
They did. So this all comes from the private business owner for KHITC credits.
And that entity being whom?
ARC Contracting. They're building the homes. They've built homes all around the city right now. A lot of what they're working on is on North 7th Street, north of Unity, between Unity and L Street on 7th. They've purchased a number of other land bank lots in that area, and they're trying to utilize the KHITC funds to help them finish those faster.
And do those homes receive any tax credit, tax refund?
That'd be on a per property basis. So far, they generally apply for the NRP rebate, which goes to the homeowner. The KHITC goes to the contractor to help offset their costs.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
How much, I forgot, it was in the notes here. How much do they get from that?
On their application here. On
I
page
forgot what
40.
it was. I'm sorry. 4041.
So they are applying for $384,000 to go towards 12 new single-family infill units.
Okay.
And KHITC can grant the full amount, they can grant a reduced amount.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Any
That's
other?
about $30,000 a unit.
Yeah. Any other questions?
I'm good.
Okay, if not, we are ready for the vote. All those in favor, please state by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And now for our new business, Mr. Westhoff, our board openings.
Yes, so recently we put out kind of the broad application window for board openings. We ended up with 2 vacancies on the Economic Development Advisory Group. We received a couple individuals who reached out and said, hey, when are you going to reopen that window? I'd like to apply. And so we went ahead and advertised for it again. We did receive 2 applications for 2 openings. One is from Mr. Justin Boderoff, and the other is from Mr. Jared Bergstresser. Justin Boderoff owns and operates Boderoff Construction, and Mr. Bergstresser owns Atchison Insurance on, I believe it's on 6th Street here. 7th Street. 7th and Commercial, yes.
I have a question in relation to development.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have an economic development director.
That is correct. We do not currently have an economic development director. It falls under my department.
Okay, so the only active pursuit of economic development or new business industry is centered out of your office?
Yes, we have a consultant that we pay that does work for the city, but we do not have a full-time staff person. It all flows through my office, yes.
It's just something. My attention. I just wonder if we're not shortening our process, is not doing us any good, but
I would personally, I don't believe so. I believe that the combination of city staff overall, as well as our economic development consultant that we pay.
it wasn't a criticism of you.
Sure, no, I understand.
I'm just
I'm just saying that I think that we actually have quite a bit we have a lot of leads out in the economic development world. We work with the chamber as well. They do quite a bit of development activity, specifically in the downtown area because of the Main Street group. So we kind of do it as a conglomeration. Simply, the fact that we don't have an economic development director does not mean there's no economic development activity going on.
And that consultant is Justin Prejean.
That's correct.
Who is normally with us, but as Mark said, they work very closely with the chamber, with Jill, and we have a lot of economic development happening in the city that I'm very pleased that we are doing. I don't know if anyone else has any questions. Was there a specific question, Commissioner Murphy, that was raised?
I'm wondering how other cities our size are attacking the need for jobs. We had an economic development advisory board.
Right.
Those people obviously have other jobs. We have, you have a job.
Yes.
Justin, not, sounds like a criticism, it's really not. Are we headed in the right direction?
I believe that we are.
I think
I
so.
think we are. I do. Over, right after, I think it was in June, when Jill had us go to Emporia for looking at Emporia's job incubator. And so I know that's an idea. I don't want to step in front of the chamber, obviously. But they have a lot of ideas in terms of bringing businesses into the city. We also have the venture with Benedictine, with the new medical school. We have the hospital, Amberwell, that's going to be expanding in terms of their cancer center. With Benedictine, of course, that's going to bring in more individuals, but we're always looking for ways to increase.
Very aware of those things,
Yeah.
but jobs are what's going to keep our city growing and alive. We don't have somebody working solely on that.
Well, I think I would not to quibble, but I do think that Justin, in consultation with Mark and then a lot of our other organizations and Jill, they are working extremely diligently because I know all of us want to ensure the longevity of Atchison. And that's very much on the forefront of our minds. And I think that we are doing well. I did attend one of the economic development group meetings, and I did emphasize that we always are interested in making sure that Atchison is in a strong position to capture additional businesses.
Have we ever had one,
What's that?
to your knowledge,
Yes.
this position?
Yes, we have.
Yes, so not independently. My understanding is, and many cities our size, you generally end up with a community development / economic development position, and that's a combination of something like a city planner with economic development. That's not the current route that we have gone. So we generally spread out those duties among various city departments, myself and others, as well as we rely on partners, and this Economic Development Advisory Group is part of that picture as well. These are business people in the community who are they also have their ears out, and they are also working towards these things. Yes, they have full-time jobs as well. It's not a full-time job for them to do prospecting or economic development activities, but they do take part in some of it as well. So,
And that wasn't a criticism of the people that are involved.
Sure.
I'm just wondering how we don't need to narrow our focus.
Economic development is a multifaceted thing to do. So yes, we are always looking at business attraction. We are working on business expansion and retention of our existing businesses. We work on workforce development, trying to, as you said, job creation and training for residents. And if I'm honest, another part of it is something that you all just approved, the housing push that we have going on, because a big part of economic development is also population development. And so all of those things work in concert. We have many poles in the lines in the water at any one time. It's also tricky because oftentimes you are dealing with private companies, and whereas on the city side, everything we do is ultimately scrutable by the public, that is not true with private companies. And so oftentimes in the very early stages of conversations, none of that is necessarily public yet, and they are asking for it to not be public yet. It comes to you all, and it comes to Planning Commission and these other boards when it's reached a stage that they're ready for that to be known. And, you know, you have many lines in the water, and some of them pull and some of them don't. But we do work diligently on economic development.
But that's something you have a concern about, or anybody else, we ought to think about that through the next year. But I think we've moved past that point for the immediate future, because we're getting ready to introduce a budget here.
Yeah, we're done for this year.
Yeah.
But I think we're doing good that way. There's a whole bunch of people helping the chamber and city staff. I think they're doing as good a job as they can hopefully do there. I mean, it's not, every little town in Kansas wants the same thing we're looking for, you know?
Well, that's why
I think we're
I think there's a lot of value in this citizen board, in what we call EDAG, and having a diversity of viewpoints on that board. And I think both of these gentlemen who submitted their applications would either, you know, continue that diversity with Mr. Boderoff, having served on the board for many years, or add a new voice with Mr. Bergstresser. So we do recommend approving both of those applications.
I would move that we accept their nomination.
I'll second it.
All right, it's been moved and seconded that we appoint Justin Buteroff and Jared Bergstresser to the Economic Development Advisory Group. Do we have any further discussion?
I'd like to thank them for applying for it.
Indeed, absolutely. All right, if nothing further, all those in favor, please state by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Congratulations to Mr. Buteroff and Mr. Bergstresser. Okay, you are up again for our budget to be presented by our city manager. Mr.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay, so as we've kind of talked about, you can go to the first slide. This is a combination of presentations. We are going to be looking at the proposed mill levy, which is the revenue neutral rate, is the state definition, and we'll talk about that in a second, as well as the budget that led to that mill levy. So we'll kind of go through both. Tonight, we'll go through this timeline first. As we've done before, before July 20th, we had to submit to the state our ceiling, our maximum, and if that was over what's called the revenue neutral rate, which we will get into, then we had to set a public hearing date, which we did on July 13th, ahead of the July 20th deadline. We have been going through this process since June with city staff and the city commissioners, going through every budget line, every project total to kind of determine where we wanted this budget to end up. On August 14th, the city published our proposed budget in the Atchison Globe. This was just a single page, which is part of my presentation. And then tonight is sort of an extra step that the city of Atchison does in the name of transparency and to just get as much information out in the public as possible. You don't have to do this tonight. Ultimately, I'm going to give you the same presentation tonight that I will at the September 8th public hearing for the revenue neutral rate and proposed budget. So those will both be held again September 8th at 4:30. Tonight is an extra step, and we're putting it out to the public now. We've looked at this before, so just another quick summary about ad valorem taxes / property taxes. That ultimately there are three components that determine property taxes for any one individual property. The first is the appraisal, the appraised value of that property. That's set by the county appraiser, not a city employee, someone at the county, who looks at all the properties within the city, uses formulas, market rate sales, as well as any work that might have been done to that property that meets the standards to increase appraised value, and then sends out that appraised value to each property owner. Everyone receives this earlier in the year. There is an appeal process that you can partake in with the county appraiser and the county commissioners, the Board of Appeals, if you believe that your appraisal is not accurate. Then that value, that number, is multiplied by what's called the state assessment rate, which in Kansas for residential properties is 11.5%. This gives you what's called the assessed value. The assessed value is ultimately the amount of value on the property that is considered taxable. The other 88.5% is not taxed. Only the 11.5% is taxed. So that assessed value is then multiplied by the mill levy. The mill levy is essentially the rate of tax per dollar of value. So 1 mill is equal to $1 of property tax for every $1,000 of assessed value. So that comes out to about $11.50 in property taxes for every $100,000 in appraised value, the value that you think of in, my home is worth $100,000. Then 1 mill is $11.50. So that can get complicated. Mills change every year. The value of a mill actually changes slightly based on the appraised value. So mills are complicated. People get confused by them. So in 2021, the state of Kansas passed what's called the revenue neutral rate legislation. This is a mill levy that is presented to every taxing entity in the state, cities, counties, school districts, earlier on in the year. And it basically is telling you that if you set your mill to this mill levy, you will have the exact same amount of tax revenue as you did the year before. You will be revenue neutral. If you intend to collect more revenue than the year before, then you have to go through the process of a public hearing. So that's the revenue neutral rate. That's what we will be doing on September 8th. Next slide. So I'm going to start kind of with where we will end up and then work backwards to how we got there. So to kind of summarize, the proposed rate that the city is looking at for 2027, which is 2026 taxes collected in 2027, is 2.64% over the revenue neutral rate. Now, the total appraised value within the city of Atchison, so we were talking about that appraised value of each property, the total appraised value within the city went up 5.5%. So if we kept our mill levy exactly the same, if we made no changes to our mill levy, we would collect 5.5% more revenue next year than we did this year. We are choosing to reduce our mill levy so that it's only 2.64%. Get into. You can see, based on the bar chart and the numbers to the right, that since 2020, really, and 2021, the city has consistently been around 2.23% per year increase in revenue from the year before. That's well below inflation. We've been doing our best to try to keep that reasonable. What that means is that every year we've been cutting our mill levy, and you can see that in the chart. As the appraised value goes up more than 2.23%, and we want to keep it at that level, the mill levy comes down each year, which is projected to continue into next year. Next slide. So the question everyone wants to know, will my taxes go up? We're going to come back to this multiple times, right? So the first answer, the answer overall is it's complicated. Next slide. And the first reason it's complicated is that the city of Atchison is only one taxing entity. We are not the largest taxing entity on everyone's property tax bill either. A portion of your property tax bill also goes to Atchison County, goes to USD 409, the Atchison Public Library, the Atchison Recreation Commission, and depending on your address, possibly a few other specialty districts. There's fewer and fewer of those in city limits, but there are some still. So then what does that split look like? This is looking at it over time. As our mill levy has gone down, some of the other larger taxing entities have either kept their mill levy the same year to year or slightly increased it. What that means is that the city's share of a resident's property tax bill has gone down every year since 2020, and these show since 2021. So in 2021 taxes, which were collected in 22, the city's share of a property tax bill was around 30%. So when you paid $1, about 30 cents came to the city, and 30 cents went to the other large entities, and then a penny went to some of the others. Each year, so then there was 30% in 2021. In 22, it was 29%. In 23, it was 27%. In 24, it was 25%. And for this tax year, 2025, where we are currently this year, next slide, it's 24%. So this is the taxes that you paid in 2026. 24% came to the city, 32% went to USD 409, 36% went to the county. In general, this has been a trend that we've seen. There's going to be quite a few changes in the next year. And so that's why I wanted to show you this progression. In the next chart, the first thing you will see is that the state's portion falls off. The state passed a law that they will no longer take any, they used to take like a mill and a half, I believe, which equaled out to about 1%, and they took that out. So that sliver is gone. This slide in front of you, the other big thing is that obviously the county as a whole, including the city residents, voted on an EMS sales tax. So that sales tax passed. What you're looking at here is what the percentages would be projected before that sales tax passed. The next slide is what it looks like since the sales tax did pass. You see the county's percentage went from 36% to 31% because they have proposed that they will cut their mill levy now that a portion is being collected through sales tax. So if you go back to the other one really quick. Even before that sales tax passed, you see the total projected mill levy for a resident in the city of Atchison that doesn't have any special districts, 156.731. The current tax year is 164.798. So even before the sales tax passed, the mill levy for a city resident taking on the whole picture was going down. The revenue neutral mill levy for all entities combined was 156.874. So even before the sales tax passed, a city resident's tax bill average was going to be revenue neutral. After the sales tax passed, go to the next one, we're now down to 144.617. This is, again, a bit of an estimate. We don't have the final numbers from the county and the school district. We don't even have the city's official final numbers. We have a projection for all three. But we're looking at, for next year, a potential of 12 mills below revenue neutral when you combine all of the taxing entities together. That is if USD 409 stays with their current mill levy and doesn't increase, and that's if the county doesn't reduce any more than they have projected. Next slide. There's another way to visualize this. So this is, I showed you that bar chart of the city's mill levy over time. That's the green one. You can see that it's going down. As appraisals go up, we've been cutting our mill levy. The counties is in red, and the school districts is in blue. You can see the school districts held pretty level through the years. The county's kind of been up and down, but overall up, especially last year, was fairly high. The dashed lines there on the county's chart are what they would have been at if the sales tax didn't pass. So you can click to the next slide, and that goes away. That's what the chart will look like with the sales tax reduction in mill levy. So the county has projected that they would reduce from a target of 56 mills to 44 mills. So that's a pretty large drop. And, they could, that's not the final number, obviously, but it will be somewhere in this range, I would project. That's significant. Slide. So, will my taxes go up? With that in mind, right? Next slide. There's still other factors that, that you have to take into account before you can answer that question for an individual property owner. One of them is your individual appraisal value. That still has a very large effect. The other is new growth in the whole tax base. So I'm going to look at an example to kind of crystallize that a little bit. Total appraised value is for the whole city. Some will go up, some will go down. Overall, everything went up 5.5%. Revenue neutral rate is only calculated after that. And so it's really an average across the whole city, right? When you're saying, if you're saying the city is revenue neutral, or if you're saying the city's collecting 1% more, that's averaged out across everybody, and everyone's property is a little different. It gets messy. If you simplify the variables, you can see how these things can impact your tax bills. So let's take a proposed, an example city here. This is the whole city. Okay, there's 4 homes and 2 empty lots in the whole city. Let's say that each home has an appraised value of $100,000. Keep it round so that we can see the differences, right? That means each one has that assessed value of $11,500, 11.5%, right? That means for the whole city, the assessed value is $46,000. If the city's mill is again round at 10, that means that the revenue for the city is $460 per year. That's our base, right? Now let's say a developer comes in and builds 2 infill homes. It should be 2, not 4, that's a typo. 2 infill homes on those 2 empty lots. There was no new city infrastructure needed for this construction. There were no additional services that went into this necessarily, right? Maybe you have to expand your police department, your fire department, but at the beginning at least, no new infrastructure, no new services. Infill lots. The new appraised value of the city, if those are appraised at $100,000, is $600,000. The assessed value is now $69,000 instead of $46,000. If the mill levy stayed the same, revenue for the city would go up 50%. But no one's individual taxes would go up at all. Only you have those new taxpayers in the tax base paying that 50% increase, right? So in that scenario, the city could stay revenue neutral and the taxes for each owner would actually go down. Or they can capture that new growth and no one's taxes would go up at all, but it would look like our revenue is going up 50%, right? And they would have to have a public hearing and talk about why. So for Atchison and for our proposed budget, the appraised value increased 5.5%, not 50%. That would be incredible. But around 2.5% of that 5.5 came from new growth of some kind, whether that's new construction, renovations, or increased utility construction, because utilities count in the state assessed rates. So 2.5% is not based on, someone's individual appraisal going up. It's based on new construction of some kind or new growth of some kind. So for this year, we are choosing to try to capture that. We were at 2.6, right? We're choosing to try to capture that because, again, we've been trying to keep it around that level for the last few years to kind of keep up with inflation as costs have gone. So that's one example of how new growth can impact revenue neutral rate and why that revenue neutral rate can be a little deceiving sometimes, right? You would be 50% over R&R, but you wouldn't actually be increasing taxes on anybody in that scenario. So the next slide is going to look at appraisal. So let's take that same city one more year in the future. They have 6 homes now, right? Each were appraised at $100,000. Let's say one of the homes up at the top it came their 3-year term to get reappraised. They were now appraised at $150,000. All the other homes are still $100,000. That one's $150,000. Even if the city says, okay, we're going to go revenue neutral, we're going to reduce our mill levy, even though we have more appraised value, reduce our mill levy and go revenue neutral, that individual property owner's taxes will still go up. All the other properties' taxes will go down so that it averages out to neutral. That individual will still see a tax increase. And so ultimately, more often than not, your individual appraisal is the king variable in determining your individual property tax bill. Mill levy is important. New growth is important. All of those things are important. If your appraisal went up $50,000, your tax bill is probably going up next year no matter what we did. Next slide. So again, we come back. Will my taxes go up? You take into account all the factors that we've talked about. The city's reduction in our mill levy to 2.6%. The county's sales tax and the subsequent mill levy reduction that came with that. The new growth at 2.5% that we talked about. And if USD 409 maintains their flat mill levy that they've done in the past, I have no information on that, but that's what they've done. Then it's still ultimately going to depend, next slide, on your final appraisal, like I said. But you can, with pretty firm confidence, say that for many residents in the city of Atchison, property taxes will likely decrease slightly in 2027. For those who did renovations, new construction, or received an updated appraisal that was maybe catching up on things from the past, they could still see a slight increase in their bill. But overall, citywide, with all of these factors included, based on the information we have today, we are below the revenue neutral rate for the city as a whole when you take into all of those factors into account. So that's kind of the mill levy revenue neutral side of the presentation. The next, yeah, go ahead.
So, just for clarification, to anybody that's interested listening, if my property, if I built a new garage this year, I won't experience any increase in my property tax this year. It would come a year from now.
Sometimes even 2 years, depending on when you built it. Because, like I said, we're talking about 2026 values, which happened often in January, and then the collection happens in 2027. So if you did a new garage in December of 2025, that would be, or 2024, that would be hitting your tax bill this year. So it's actually sometimes a 2-year delay.
That's where your surprise might come in. You might say, "Why?
Sometimes.
My property tax didn't go up," and then it does.
Yeah.
Because that's finally, that revised appraisal has caught up with you.
That's why it's an important document to pay attention to. I know it comes through in the spring, so a lot of times people are like, I'm not even thinking about this right now. But that appraisal document that comes through, if you look at it and you think, wait a second, I know very similar house next to me, it was different, then you can have that discussion with the appraiser. Generally speaking, they're open to those discussions and taking into account your personal data that you might be able to present for the value of your home. And again, all that's residential. Commercial is a different bear. It's done the same way, but the rates are all different.
It's a good explanation of it.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, so then we'll get into the actual city budget portion that came up with that 2.6%. So what are some highlights? On the expense side, there's two sides of every budget, right? There's expense and revenue. First, we'll kind of look at some highlights of expenses. We settled on, this all again came from the meetings with city staff and the city commission that have been happening since June. We settled on a 2% COLA raise for employees other than myself this year. That's ultimately going to be distributed as the department head sees fit, and they will, distribute those. Sometimes folks are on probation or something, they don't get them right away, but in general, we're looking at 2%. Now, it's slightly lower than we've been doing. The last 2 years, the city did a percentage plus a dollar amount. Part of that was to give slightly larger percentage increases to lower paid employees for a couple years because we did wage studies and thought we needed to bring them up a little bit more. We felt pretty comfortable this year that we've done a good job of that in the last few years. Some lower wage employees, got around 10% last year when you take into account the percentage plus the dollar amount. This year we're looking at 2%, and we'll get into why it's a little lower than typical to try to keep it at that 2.6% budget-wide. Staffing-wise, we did add a new position in community development. We talked about it a little bit before, of a new city planner. We are interviewing for that right now with the projection of hiring for 27. The purpose of that position is to help with the construction that's going on in the city and development, which is booming to some extent, and it's putting a tax on our existing employees. The good news is it's replacing a consultant who was getting to the point where things were going to start being expensive. So despite hiring a new position in that budget, the community development budget actually went down year over year. Along with that, we did remove a couple positions that have been unfilled through the years or that we consolidated. Important one worth noting is we removed a position in finance. Basically, everybody from me all the way down to kind of the customer service clerks took a little portion of the job duties from that position that we thought we could all handle, and we were able to remove that position from the budget. We did budget a one-time project for next year of replacing our outdated financial software. We've been receiving some signs from our current provider that they're going to stop supporting that in the future, and that's obviously very important. So we're going to go out for bid on that and try to get that replaced in 27. So that's a one-time thing, right? We're talking about why slightly lower raises. It's a one-time project that we really need to do next year. Something that from 26 to 27 is a savings is we upgraded our phones this year. We upgraded pretty much every city phone to voice over IP, which is more secure. And again, we were receiving notice from AT&T that those old phone lines were no longer going to be supported in the future. Ended up saving us about $2,000 per month once we finished that transition. We do have also 1 year of an extra debt payment, an extra bond payment this year, in 27 specifically. So we took out a new road bond this year, and that will be paid next year for the first time. And we have one that's falling off, but it won't fall off until 28. So in 27, there's 2 bonds being paid, another one-time expense in 27. And then at the direction of City Commission, staff definitely went through and we cut out some equipment purchases. We cut out some larger project discussions or pushed them out to the future if we needed to, as well as reducing our operations budget lines, which I'll kind of get into in a little bit. A note for 27, we have in the budget $7,941,000 in capital improvement and infrastructure projects, $950,000 in equipment upgrades that need done, and then also this one big project that you'll hear me talking about, which is a potential collector well project we've been working on for a number of years, designing that with FEMA and with some engineers to try to get our water collection under the river level instead of above where it's at now, which is impacted by the height of the river. There are times when we need to put in a pump in the river to ensure reliability of water to the residents. So we've been working towards this, designing it. This is an estimate. If this project does go forward, you'll see in the revenue that it will only happen if we receive a very large grant from FEMA to make it happen. But it is in there at a projected cost of $28 million. Next slide. So revenue highlights. Property taxes is only one portion of our revenue. We also are very aggressive and have a very good track record of receiving state and federal grants to offset, especially one-time projects. We have interest on our investments. We do have a sales tax for the city. We don't collect the county's EMS sales tax. That goes to the county, but we do have our own 1-cent sales tax. We do have franchise fees, special fees, tourist taxes, utility fees, assessments and fines and permit fees. And then we also tap into savings from the past with our fund balances, which we've done the last few years. We talked about in the meeting the ARPA funds. This is 26 is the final year for that, so it's not available in 27. So for the 2027 proposed budget, typo there, I'll fix. The general fund, the debt service, which is the bond payments, and the library. The library is built into our budget, even though they control it. These are the only funds that actually levy a property tax. Everything else is collected in those other revenues. And even for those, the total expenses for those 3 funds is around $14,600,000, but we only need $5,175,000 in property taxes to cover those expenses. So around 2/3 of even the taxable funds are covered by these other revenues and not property taxes. We talked about that collector well, so something to note is that we project around $36 million in other revenue for capital improvement and equipment purchases in the 27 budget. The biggest portion of that, again, is a projection of the only way those collector wells will be put in place is if we receive something like a $25 to $26 million grant from FEMA. That has not been awarded yet. We are projecting that we are going to try to get that if it works out. But obviously, that's the only way that project would ever happen.
So Mark, could you, again, regarding the 2/3 covered by other revenue, just 1/3 would be from property tax?
That's correct. And that's just for the funds that can levy a property tax. For the other funds, water, wastewater, refuse, land bank, all of those other funds are covered completely by not property tax.
And is the majority of that 2/3 state and federal grant?
I wouldn't say the majority. The second largest bucket that we collect is sales tax. The third largest is franchise fees from utilities. And then you start getting into kind of the other fees like the interest on investments and then those state and federal grants. If we receive the $25 million FEMA grant, then that would obviously be the majority for that 1 year. So it's kind of it's a unique budget year because it's the one-time, very large potential project. Next slide. So this is a breakdown of our operations by fund. So we talked about those various funds. So the top is the general fund, and all the way through you see all the rest there. Again, general fund, debt service, and the library is not even on here because they're so separate, are the only ones that are collected through property taxes in any way. One thing to note on this page as you're looking at it, there's a lot of information. It's going to be out for a couple weeks before the actual hearing, so take your time to look at it. But one thing of note is the little star by the fund balance for the capital improvement program. So that shows 2%. The city policy is that we would keep that at 5%. This year, the city commission gave direction to allow that to go to 2% for a one-time, on a one-time basis, and that is strictly because of that collector well project. The fund balance is actually in a healthy place. Without that collector well project in there, it would be at 16%, which is well over the 5%. The reason the collector well project drives that down to 2% is that you're changing the denominator. You're changing the numerator too, but you're changing the denominator, and so the percentage drops heavily. So, again, take your time to look at those. For tonight's, since we're not voting on anything, we'll go ahead and move to the next slide, which is our operations by department. So this is, a further breakdown of that other page where you're looking at each department. Some notes here. The finance department there that you see, reduction of around $60,000 year to year, partly because of that reduced position. And then I would also note that we have overall reductions in multiple other departments. Wastewater, water, and community development are included in that, as well as very modest increases in every department. The largest increase year to year to note is in solid waste, which is refuse. From 26 to 27, the expense projection is up about $150,000. The reason for that is the dump fee that we have had to start paying to dump our trash out at the county dump. So the revenue offsets that, but it did increase on a one-time basis about $150,000. So. Next slide. All right, we went ahead and published in this presentation, and the slides are available online, our full CIP and ERP. The CIP is the capital improvement plan where we save up for projects in the future. The ERP is the equipment reserve plan where we save up for equipment purchases we need to make in the present and the future. So I'm just going to do a highlight on each page. Again, this is available for folks to take a harder look at, but I'm just going to highlight a few things on each page. This is the capital improvement plan. The top section there is the revenues. So we were talking about revenues. These are all of the different grants, bonds, loans that the city is able to utilize to offset our capital improvement needs. So when you're going through an expense later on, even if it's a very large expense, it might be offset by a revenue up here. So for example, in the middle of the page, you see that $25 million FEMA grant. So you'll see the very large collector well expense later on, which we'll get to, but it's offset by that $25 million projected grant, which is the only way that project would happen. Next slide. So this is where we're getting into some of the projects that we're looking at. Again, highlighting 2027. One thing of note is the $300,000 towards resurfacing all of the roads out at Warnock Lake. Again, this is a project that we are going for some grants to offset that cost, but we are projecting to try to do that next year. Next slide. 3 items on this page. The very top line is our annual Connecting Links improvements project. So every year we work with KDOT to try to finish up, refinish some of the highways that are within city limits. So we save about $500,000, and then this offset by some revenue lines as well, KDOT's share of that. For 2027, I believe the current projection is to try to do some of the US 73 South. Is that correct? Still Clinton? For 27, C-Clip, US 73 South? Yeah. So
We'll
down.
probably be on US 73.
Yeah. If you recall, they did 59 the last few years, east-west. Now they're working on 73, starting in the south and moving north. Another one in the middle there is the $500,000 from our mill and overlay bond that we did this year. So there's $1.2 million going towards mill and overlay this year, but we also set aside money to do 5th Street and Unity Street next year after the sidewalk projects are completed this fall and winter. And then at the bottom, again, that's the collector well, the large number at the bottom, 28 million, if that goes through. So, next slide. 2 things to highlight on this page. One is the $350,000 for the traveling water screen. This is in our current water intake. We've talked about it at meetings in the past. There's a screen that moves through and collects debris from the river. As you imagine, there's quite a bit when you're just taking water off the top. So it's a good example that even if we are moving forward with a collector well project, even if we're trying to secure that reliability in the future, we're still going to have to be doing repairs like this in the short term to make sure that water reliability is there in the present as well. And then at the bottom, you see the note about the fund balance at 2%, where if you take out that collector well project, it jumps to 16. Okay, next slide. So all of those were water and other city infrastructure projects. We have to have a separate wastewater CIP. So this is for projects at the wastewater treatment plant as well as our combined sewer system that we are required to separate over time so that sanitary sewer and storm sewer are not connected anymore. Something to note on this page is in the middle, we are going to attempt to go potentially, with your approval when that comes time, obviously, to go for a somewhat large state revolving loan to do some large-scale clarifier reconstruction at the wastewater treatment plant. So again, that's another project that, you know, it's going to rely on that loan or some other grant to actually work, but it's something that does need done. So we're going to start working on that. And next slide. So wastewater CIP is much shorter. The only thing I'd point out here is the fund balances over time are very healthy in the wastewater department, partly because we're always going for grants and other funds to offset these projects, and partly because if we don't get one of those, we need to have some money to actually do some of these things. And so we try to keep some fund balance there. Okay, next slide. Then we are on to the equipment reserve plan. So something to note right off the bat is that there are fewer revenue streams for equipment replacement than there are for capital improvement projects. For the most part, the revenue streams here are transfers from departments where they're paying for equipment from their department, right? And so generally speaking, this is coming from those original revenue sources. They're not coming from grants and things. Not too many grants to go out and buy a truck. If one comes available, we'll try to go for it, but they don't really exist right now. So that's a good thing to note as you look at the equipment reserve plan. Next slide. One thing to note on this page is this also takes into account when we have taken out a loan to buy a piece of equipment. So for example, on the bottom, about the bottom 2/3 there, you have 2 payments ongoing for 2 pieces of fire equipment, pumper, and then the new fire truck we bought in 25, I believe, Chief? Yeah. So you see those payments out over time. So we are projecting those out over time to make sure that we have enough funds to make those payments. And last slide. The only thing I wanted to point out on this page is you see a lot of water and wastewater equipment here. Something else that we do with the equipment reserve plan that's notable is that if you see D&C next to any of the equipment, D&C stands for distributions and collections. This is a department within the city. Maybe you would say probably some of the guys who get the dirtiest in the city, and it's the pipe workers, basically, right? When they're working on water supply pipes, distribution, or sewer pipes, collection. So it stands for distribution and collection. And those expenses are split evenly between water and wastewater. We just split those costs to both sides. So you'll see, for example, a D&C truck in the wastewater equipment plant and then a D&C truck in the water equipment line as well. So it's just split between the two. Okay, and then I think and this is the form that we send to the state that summarizes all of that we just talked about. And just to prove kind of that we are submitting to them, if you all approve it on September 8th, the dollar amounts we were talking about, it's small to read, but the 2 highlighted parts are last year's collected revenue from property taxes, which is $5,042,623. And then this year's projected revenue, which is $5,175,900, and that is the 2.64% that we talked about at the beginning.
Okay, very thorough report.
Any questions I'll answer. They're also, again, we'll be doing this again at the September 8th public hearing. We wanted to have this out to the public, and people can bring those questions to that hearing as well.
Okay. Well, I appreciate all of the hard work, and we thank you for all of this. Do you all have any questions?
Now, are my property taxes going up?
Send me your appraisal, I'll let you know.
All right.
Send me your appraisal, I'll let you know.
Okay. All right. If there aren't any, excellent job, Mark. Thank you for going through this, and also thank you for the extra step in terms of allowing everyone to see what we have been working on since June. So really appreciate it. Great job. Anything else? Anything further?
I think that's worth noting, that the number of hours that have gone into this, from staff and commissioners, a lot. So it's not just to throw it against the wall and see what happens.
That's right. Right. That's right. So we thank you. Well said, Vice Mayor. All right. If nothing further, since we have no communications, informational items, Mr. Westhoff?
We have in your packet the July 27 financials. Only thing I'd note is every month so far in the year, sales taxes have been above projections. Sales tax collections, they were slightly below projections in July. I would anticipate those will go back up. Obviously, been a handful of new residents into town in the last few weeks, and will continue to be in the next few weeks if you follow anything as the students return to town. So I would imagine that that's nothing to worry about, but we'll keep an eye on the trend.
Okay.
And then for my update, the only thing, I didn't really have much. I think I've been talking a lot, except that right before we came into City Commission tonight, Clinton notified me that we did receive a new grant. We talked about these grants, $637,000 to go towards another sidewalk project after the ones that we finish up now. So these are all, a reminder, these are all projects that ultimately try to connect to Atchison Middle School. It's been designated by 409 as a preferred walking school. So we've been able to use that to secure state funds to kind of create a spider web out from Atchison Middle School with some spurs of sidewalk and handicap accessible walking so that folks can get to the middle school from around the city.
Excellent. That's great news.
Yep.
Okay.
And as everything, I'm not going to talk for a while.
Okay, excellent job. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. All right, with that being said, we are next left with our governing body comments, starting with Commissioner Greenlee.
Don't have anything really other than just to piggyback on what Vice Mayor Wilcox said as far as the work put in, as far as coming up with a budget, and the hard work that our city manager and accounting department has put in, and also the hours that we spent here playing with numbers and looking at figures that I don't know if the general public really appreciates the time and effort that goes into constructing a budget to run the city. And having been one of those guys, as I said before, that sit back and say, you know, I don't know what those knuckleheads are doing with all our money, and we're not getting any bang for our buck. They need to spend some time in this room and participate or see what goes into constructing the budget. Have greater appreciation. So, job well done.
Well said, Commissioner Greenlee. Well said. Vice Mayor?
Well, it's that time of year where school's starting. Let's all be cautious out there, especially around the elementary schools, high schools, and the college students are coming back to town. So children's cycles are changing and they're up and moving around, so just be cautious out there.
Very good. Well said. Commissioner Murphy?
I really can't add anything but what previous two commissioners have said, that it is an awakening if you, for someone to have to work on a budget this size and this magnitude with this diverse. You know, I think people need to realize not just like 2 + 2.
Well,
That's you. All right. Commissioner
I would
Slattery.
like to congratulate our fellow commissioner, Mr. Wilcox, on his honoring of the coach. Quite an accomplishment.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Fit right in with our city staff.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. I will just echo everyone's comments because I think it is true that we have worked hard, city staff have worked hard, many hours have gone into this budget, thoughtful discussions. No one has approved or suggested any changes lightly. We want our city to run efficiently and effectively, and it does. Everyone here is very much supportive of our city, very much wants the best for our city, and I think that our city staff are to be commended, and especially as what Mark had mentioned, that Clinton had said we just received another $600,000 grant. That doesn't come easily, and so we do have dedicated staff that work extremely diligently to make sure that we have every opportunity to be fiscally accountable and fiscally sound. And congratulations again, Vice Mayor Wilcox, on your well-deserved honor. Appreciate it. And also just want to let everyone know that, you know, Atchison is doing quite well. We participate in the League of Kansas Municipalities, and that allows us not only to showcase how great Atchison is, but it allows us to collaborate with other cities of like size and larger, and we appreciate that collaboration. So with that, I would move that we adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded that we adjourn. All those in favor, please state by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, same sign.
No.
Motion carries. We are adjourned.
Okay.
All right.
Technically.
We still have.
Huh?
We still have.
Oh, that's right, our land bank, I forgot that.
Yes, yes.
Who was the one?